My name is Johannes Breidenbach. I'm head of department of the Norwegian National Forest Inventory and I'm coordinator of the PathFinder project. The problem is that Europe doesn't have a consistent national forest inventory. If you see Europe as a national state, right? There is no consistent forest information collection system for Europe. There are a lot of very good national systems. They're called the National Forest Inventories, and we are working on creating a consistent system that brings together the national systems and some other existing international systems to make a consistent forest information. So from our perspective, there should be three main components. So the one is field information. That means we need to collect field data, measuring data in the forest, the trees themselves, and that's what one of the project part does. It's called the Advanced Forest Measurements. So there we actually go out into the forest, measure trees, and do that with advanced systems as well. This is just an example. There are also many other systems we are going to use. In this way, we gather information from the ground truth, or also called in situ data in some cases. So this is the first part. So then there is the need to get from, because you can't measure every tree, right? You somehow need to get into the area. So therefore, we connect this field information that we collect at certain places, at sample plots around Europe. We connect that with remotely sensed data, satellite data, for example. So there's a very good system in Europe called Copernicus, and they have satellites called Sentinel. Those Sentinel data we are using to connect to these field data. Through this connection, we can actually do maps. These maps, again, are combined with field information to create estimates. We are combining these things together to create reliable estimates. So these are the first two parts, and they feed into the third part, which is the forecasting part. So in this case, in the forecasting, we need to know, well, how will the forest likely develop in the future? Because our policies that we create will create different future forests, right? So if we decide to protect more forest, we will get something else than if we decide to, for example, do more timber harvesting or do more carbon sequestration. So therefore, this third part does scenarios.
I'm leading the working package 1 in PathFinder, and this is a work package aiming to have a consistent survey through Europe and complement national forest inventories. This working package is providing the data to the other working packages and also harmonizing for the first time incredible number of national forest inventories in a consistent way, so the other working packages can produce maps by modeling and also different forecasts with different scenarios can be carried out in Europe. We will work in many different tasks. One of the main one, the core one, is to get for the first time an harmonized and structured data sets of the different national forest inventories in Europe. But we are also implementing a specific and standardized field protocol that will allow for a better integration with remote sensing. On the top of that, additionally, we are analyzing different advanced techniques of recording field data. So we are trying, for instance, mobile laser data or the acoustics or images, so we can better monitor biodiversity or carbon stocks and doing 3D digital twins. So many of these aspects will improve the future monitoring in Europe. So this new advanced field monitoring will complement national forest inventories and other national monitoring systems like ITP Forest to allowing a better integration with remote sensing and being able to do different forecasts to allow forest policymakers to make appropriate decisions in Europe.
I'm leading in the PathFinder the work package 2. That's about developing a platform for LULUCF and biodiversity monitoring and at European scale. This is of course kind of a core of the PathFinder project because this kind of European forest monitoring that is developed in the PathFinder, it requires this estimates at different geographical regions and also the maps at high resolution for input for the policy pathway assessment. So the main output of the work package 2 will be the concept for the platform for the LULUCF and biodiversity monitoring. This platform has different modules. It concerns the data preparation that is required for the mapping and estimation. Then there is the kind of the methodological part or the part for which actually takes the role of creating the high resolution maps and producing the estimates for the different geographical regions. And the third module is about presenting the results of the maps and estimates to communicate them further. So this is really the core of the output from the work package. But besides that, there is also a lot of work related to designing the platform and also to decide the ways how the maps and the estimates are produced. So we support the choices by scientific work as well. And there also those big part of the work done is to implement the estimators to the platform.
I'm part of work package 3, which is the work package focused on modeling future forest scenarios for Europe. Why is that important? Because we know that different policy decisions can lead to very different outcomes in the future, especially when it comes to land use change and the location of forests. Right? So within our work package, we try to anticipate how different policy decisions could lead to different outcomes. And the idea is to later compare these potential different outcomes and understand what are the potential trade-offs and synergies associated with different policy pathways. We are doing this work by coupling different types of models. How some of these models, they look at future land use change trajectories. Others look at how forests might be growing under different management styles, under different management. Other models look at disturbances, how future disturbances, for example, due to climate change, might affect the future forests that we might have across Europe. Others look at carbon dynamics, what's going to happen with the carbon stocks stored in the forests across Europe. Are they going to increase, decrease? What do we want to prioritize? Environmental services such as carbon stocks, biodiversity, or the provision of timber, wood production. So we have different sets of models that look at all these different questions, different topics. We combine them to create policy scenarios. Once we have these scenarios, we can start analyzing them, comparing them, to have a better understanding of how policy might affect the future of forests and land use across Europe.
The work that we're doing on this work package is actually combining scientific knowledge and introducing it to policymakers and stakeholders so they can engage with knowledge that will empower them to create better policy and practice. The issue actually right now is to ensure that we are getting reliable and coherent data, consistent data as well, that can then inform policymakers. Not only that, we want to make sure that stakeholders can be engaged in the policy process. I have been working on with some of my colleagues on a policy map, which is not only identifying targets across the EU and member states, but also it includes a coherency to determine trade-offs and as well as synergies that exist with the current policy across the board. And these policies are forest and forest related, so we included 8 sectors, and this analysis has provided a lot of interesting material which is then passed on to other work packages so they can then model potential trade-offs. This work goes directly into the work that's being done with many other tasks. For example, I also will be working with fellow colleagues from the University of Amsterdam and the ELO as well, to organise co-design workshops with stakeholders and policymakers. We'll adopt the modelling that will look at different trade-offs and potential synergies, present these modelled results, and hopefully find new pathways that are context-specific in these different regions across Europe.
We have 2 more years in our project. We're just getting the first results out now, or they have just recently been published. There have been published high-resolution maps. More of those maps will be published soon in early next year, which is 2025. And so there we're gonna expect that these maps will then be combined with our field information to create actual estimates and reliable information for policymakers to make decisions. Also, these maps are going to be used to create future forest scenarios. This information will together be then used in the further parts of the project.